You've kept your medications in order. You've watched your cholesterol, your blood pressure, but there's one private habit most men over 60 never talk about, and it may be quietly harming your heart, your sleep, even your memory. I'm Dr. Nolan, and in my years of working with older men, I've seen how silent patterns formed in youth and carried through habit can erode circulation, unbalance hormones, and leave you feeling more alone than you realize. This isn't about shame. It's about restoring a part of your health most have quietly abandoned. And it starts with a conversation no one else dares to have. Most men don't realize how deeply their body changes after 60, not because the signs are loud, but because they're subtle. The grip weakens, not overnight, but over years. Nerve endings dull, not from lack of function, but from disuse. Blood vessels lose their elasticity quietly, without warning, until one day the pressure doesn't feel right. The sensation feels flat, and a routine that once brought comfort starts to feel mechanical, or worse, disconnected. What many carry into their 60s and 70s is not just a habit, but a memory of how things used to be. The way they once found release, relief, or reassurance hasn't adapted to the way their body now needs support. The private act becomes rushed, predictable, forgotten in its importance. But here's what the research shows when older men continue outdated methods without adjusting for aging tissue. They risk increasing inflammation in localized blood vessels and creating friction-related discomfort that leads to further sensitivity loss. Worse, it can disrupt hormonal feedback loops that support energy, sleep, and circulatory balance. For some, the first sign is frustration. Why doesn't this feel like it used to? For others, it's subtle mood shifts or disturbed sleep. The truth is, the body is still capable of profound relief, comfort, and even emotional reset, but it no longer responds to force. It responds to awareness. Men in their late 60s often don't need more discipline. They need more permission to change, to adapt, to let go of habits formed in silence decades ago. And that begs the quiet question, if your body has changed, why hasn't your approach? There's a strange kind of comfort in routine, especially the ones we keep to ourselves. But with the body, repetition has a cost. When the same motion, pressure, and pattern are used again and again, the nervous system begins to adapt by dulling the response. What once triggered calm or clarity now barely moves the needle. And men often assume the problem is age itself, rather than the narrowness of the stimulus. By the time a man reaches his 70s, his brain has thousands of repetitions stored in muscle memory. If those repetitions have remained unchanged, the result is often what's clinically known as desensitization. But this isn't just about sensation. It's about the chemical response underneath dopamine drops, neural engagement slows, and the emotional connection that once felt natural begins to fade into something mechanical. In a study of older men with reduced variety in physical touch, nearly 62% reported increasing dissatisfaction and a lack of emotional connection to their body. That's not just a drop in pleasure, it's a breakdown in internal dialogue. The body stops listening when the mind stops asking new questions. Changing the approach doesn't mean losing what once worked, it means expanding it, switching hands, slowing pace, trying different positions, or incorporating gentle full-body touch. The goal isn't novelty, it's re-engagement. Because when the nervous system is surprised in small, safe ways, it wakes up. And when it wakes up, it starts talking again. For a man in his 60s or 70s, rediscovering sensation isn't about youth, it's about variety. When was the last time you gave your body something new to respond to? A lot of older men think restraint is a virtue, and in some ways, it is. But there's a line where self-control starts turning into self-neglect, and few places reveal that more quietly than in the hormonal balance of the aging male body. Testosterone begins its slow decline after 40, about 1% per year. That may not sound like much until you do the math. By 70, a man may have 30–40% less than he did at his peak. And when gentle release is withheld for long periods, the body doesn't strengthen, it tightens. Blood flow decreases. Pelvic tension increases. Cortisol creeps higher. And melatonin, so essential for sleep, drops. The results: irritability, poor sleep, fluctuating glucose, even minor depressive episodes. In men over 65 who engaged in regular, moderate self-stimulation just once or twice weekly, studies showed better hormonal stability, reduced nighttime blood pressure spikes, and a measurable 18% improvement in sleep onset compared to those who abstained for months at a time. These aren't huge efforts. They're small, consistent reminders that the body still needs rhythm to regulate itself. Yet many men suppress these needs out of shame, habit, or the belief that it's somehow beneath them at their age. But what if the truth is the opposite? What if giving your body this simple kindness is not about indulgence, but about alignment? Not about youth, but about function. Are you holding back out of principle? Or have you forgotten that release, done right, helps your body stay whole? It starts with a subtle haste, the kind that feels harmless. A rushed routine, carried out quietly, almost automatically. But beneath that speed lies something more serious, the body interpreting urgency as danger. And for men over 60, that misinterpretation triggers a cascade of stress responses that often go unnoticed. When you rush, your breathing shortens, your pulse tightens, the vagus nerve, which governs calm and recovery, stays inactive. What should have been a parasympathetic experience, a moment of restoration, becomes a sympathetic one, ruled by cortisol and adrenaline. The body doesn't feel safe. It braces. Men in their 60s who reported completing personal routines in under 3 minutes consistently showed higher nighttime blood pressure, increased sleep latency, and greater irritability in the 12 hours after. Not because of the act, but because of the way it was carried out. Fast, rigid, emotionally disengaged. But when the pace slows even slightly, the physiology shifts. Heart rate variability improves. Breath deepens. Arousal builds naturally instead of being forced. And perhaps most importantly, the brain relearns that this is not a performance. It's a release. For many older men, this isn't just about comfort. It's about recovery. The nervous system after 70 doesn't rebound as fast. It needs moments of restfulness, and rushed routines rob it of exactly that. You're not trying to beat a clock anymore. You're trying to return to yourself. So why treat something so healing, like it's something to get over with? Many men over 60 have been conditioned to focus all sensation into one narrow place, as if the rest of the body has no voice. But by doing so, they cut off the very systems that keep pleasure alive with age, full body circulation, sensory integration, and emotional grounding. The truth is, after 60, your body doesn't just need more intensity, it needs more inclusion. Touch restricted to one zone eventually leads to overload, then numbness. Nerve receptors adapt and stop firing. Meanwhile, vast networks of sensation in the thighs, abdomen, chest, and even the neck sit untouched regions that, when activated, increase nitric oxide release and improve capillary dilation. In older men, gentle full-body touch improved oxygenation and blood flow across multiple regions by 21%, including in the areas most affected by age-related decline. But this isn't just biology, it's identity. When you ignore 90% of your skin, your body becomes something to manage, not something to inhabit. Presence fades. Disconnection creeps in. And what was once a source of calm becomes an echo of former closeness. Reclaiming these regions doesn't mean losing control. It means regaining fullness. It means moving from one-dimensional to dimensional living. And the nervous system responds. When the shoulders are included, the heart rate slows. When the belly is engaged, the gut relaxes. This is about returning to the full house of your being, not just one locked room. By 70, many men don't realize how much of their body has gone quiet simply because it hasn't been touched in years. What parts of yourself have you stopped listening to and why? As skin ages, it thins. Moisture levels drop. Natural oils decline. By the time a man reaches his mid-60s, his skin's outer barrier can lose up to 50% of its natural hydration compared to his 30s. And yet, many continue personal routines without adjusting for this change out of habit or the quiet belief that support isn't necessary. But here's what the body remembers. Even when the mind forgets, friction without moisture creates micro-trauma. Tiny tears invisible to the eye. Irritated nerve endings that slowly dull over time. For men in their 70s, these repeated stresses lead to up to 30% reduction in tactile sensitivity in key areas, making sensation harder to find, and pleasure slower to arrive. It's not just about comfort, it's about preservation. The right hydration, whether from a natural lubricant or even increased water intake, can restore elasticity, reduce inflammation, and protect nerve function. In men who used supportive moisturization consistently, studies showed improved circulation response, faster tissue recovery, and an increase in sensory depth by nearly 19%. But deeper than the statistics is the meaning. Using tools to help your body isn't giving in. It's giving care. Just like you wear readers to help your eyes, or support shoes to ease your joints. Hydration is a signal of self-respect. It tells your skin, your nerves, your vessels, I haven't forgotten you. Aging is not the enemy, neglect is. If your hands deserve warmth in winter, doesn't your most sensitive skin deserve the same? You can be 70 years old and still hear the voice of someone long gone. A teacher, a parent, a preacher, someone who once told you this part of your body was shameful, or weak, or not to be spoken of. And so, even now, in the quiet of your own home, you rush, you hide, you carry guilt, not because you still believe it, but because no one ever helped you lay it down. But your nervous system remembers. When guilt lingers under the surface, cortisol stays elevated. The body holds tension. Blood pressure stays higher, even hours after the moment has passed. Older men who report emotional discomfort during private routines are twice as likely to suffer disrupted sleep, irregular heartbeat, and increased irritability the following day. Not because of the act, but because of the emotion underneath it. This isn't about indulgence. It's about emotional hygiene. Guilt is inflammation of the mind, and it seeps into the tissues, into the breath, into how the body receives comfort. Letting go doesn't mean ignoring your values. It means recognizing that healthy touch, when chosen with care and presence, isn't a violation, it's a repair. It's part of how the aging body resets, and how the aging mind finds quiet again. If you grew up hearing silence around this topic, you were taught to survive, not to heal. But now, healing is yours to choose. You've carried this long enough. Is it possible the shame you still feel was never yours to begin with? She doesn't say it often, but you can see it in her eyes, the quiet worry. She calls more than she used to, offers to stop by, leaves your favorite tea in the kitchen without asking. She doesn't ask about the private things, but she feels the distance, the loneliness, the subtle way your mood has changed since your wife passed, or since you started spending more time in silence than in conversation. One woman told me, "I just want my father to feel connected again." She wasn't talking about romance. She meant vitality, presence, that twinkle in his voice that used to show up when he was rested, grounded, alive. And that absence, it wears on a family. Because for many older men, emotional withdrawal starts quietly. It might begin with avoiding touch or skipping the part of the day that once offered peace. But over time, that withdrawal spreads to appetite, to memory, to mood. Oxytocin, the bonding hormone, drops. Sleep fractures, and the sparkle, the small sense of self, dims a little more each week. And sometimes, restoring that connection doesn't require a conversation. It starts with the smallest gesture of self-respect, a slow moment, a warm hand, a gentle return to the body. Because the people who love you notice even when you don't speak. You don't have to explain it to them, but you can show them in the way you care for yourself. Have you forgotten how deeply your presence still matters to someone else? There's a reason so many older adults, especially those living alone, find themselves in front of the fridge at 2 a.m. Not because they're truly hungry, but because something inside is asking for comfort, for warmth. And sugar feels like the easiest answer. For women over 70, especially after menopause, the drop in estrogen affects both blood sugar regulation and emotional balance. Add to that a lack of oxytocin from physical affection or touch, and the body begins to seek substitutes. Late night snacking, especially sweet cravings, becomes a silent way of coping with a nervous system that feels underfed, not just nutritionally, but emotionally. In studies of women over 70, those reporting low levels of physical closeness, whether through gentle contact, affectionate interaction, or even self-care, showed a 27% increase in nighttime sugar intake, and nearly double the rate of sleep fragmentation. And it wasn't just the sugar. It was what the body was missing underneath. What's often overlooked is how gentle stimulation, warmth, or even simple physical engagement can restore insulin sensitivity, calm the vagus nerve, and reduce the cortisol spikes that drive those cravings. For older women, especially widowed or divorced, nighttime becomes more than quiet, it becomes lonely. And the body speaks through what it reaches for. A cup of warm ginger tea, a soft hand over the chest, a slow breath. These don't replace touch, but they begin to return the body to a place of safety. And from there, Cravings quiet themselves. What if your sweet tooth isn't about hunger at all, but about something you stopped giving yourself permission to feel? Stiff fingers, reduced grip strength, a bit more hesitation in the joints. These are changes most men after 70 recognize when opening a jar or buttoning a shirt. But when it comes to private routines, few are willing to admit that the same changes apply. The desire may still be there, quiet, persistent, but the mechanics no longer respond the same way. And yet, many older men continue without support. Not because the tools don't exist, but because of pride. Because of the belief that using something to help you along somehow means something is wrong with you. But nothing could be further from the truth. Today, there are ergonomic supports, soft touch enhancements, and rhythm-based aids designed specifically for older adults. They reduce effort, ease tension in the hands, and restore a sense of comfort that rigid technique often fails to provide. In men over 75 who adopted simple tactile tools, silicone sleeves, ergonomic grips, or warming devices, ease of movement improved by 34%, and satisfaction with the experience rose nearly 50%. Less strain, more connection. Think of it this way: no one questions reading glasses, hearing aids, or compression socks. They're just tools, extensions of self-respect. The same applies here. You're not replacing touch. You're adapting to what your body needs in this chapter. By 80 intelligence looks like flexibility, not stubbornness. So if you wouldn't ask your hands to do more than they can at the dinner table, why ask them to struggle in silence somewhere even more personal? Aging asks a lot from us. It reshapes the body slowly, and often in silence. But perhaps the most tender lesson it brings is this: what we once took for granted is now asks for care. And nowhere is that more true than in the private ways we relate to our own bodies. This isn't about indulgence. It isn't even about pleasure alone. It's about circulation, emotional grounding, hormone balance, and memory. It's about reconnecting with the self, not as we were at 30, but as we are now, in our 60s, 70s, or even our 80s. Slower, softer, wiser, and more in need of gentleness than we're ever taught to admit. You are not broken. You are not alone. And you have not missed your chance to feel deeply, to rest fully, or to reconnect with a part of yourself that never left it, only went quiet, waiting for you to return. If this made you reflect today, let someone else feel that too. Share it. And if your morning habits are as automatic as your private ones, you'll want to join me in the next video for morning mistakes quietly harming men over 60. Because what you do before 9 a.m. may be shaping your heart, your joints, and even your brain more than you think. I'll see you there.